In our Doctor Who retro review, we talk Genesis of the Dalek. It's a 6-part adventure. We'll do the first 3 parts after this. Hello out there, I'm the oldest nerd, and in the first 3 episodes of 6 of Genesis of the Daleks, which by the way is one of my favorite of the classic Who stories, because it takes the enemy that was established from the very beginnings of the series to a origin story, which we had not had before. And so what we have is the character Davros, who's introduced here, who makes a fighting machine in his own image. He takes mutated forms of the people of Scaros and takes their conscience away and puts them into a machine of death. And so the Doctor has been sent by the Time Lords to try to either eradicate them or to change their genetic code where they're not quite so aggressive. The Time Lords actually hijacked the transmat that we saw at the end of the previous story and sent them right to Scaros at the time of the origin of the Daleks. Now, also Harry and Sarah Jane came along, but they do not have the TARDIS with them. The Time Lords left the Doctor with a time ring, which is his lifeline to take him back to the TARDIS once his mission is accomplished. However, of course, we know that as soon as they got there, it wouldn't be very long until it was somehow lost or taken away. And so it was. We find that at this point, Skaro is populated by 2 warring factions, and they've been at war for generations. There are the Khalids and the Thralls. And the Khalids are where we first land, and the Doctor and Harry are kidnapped. But for some reason, they didn't notice Sarah Jane, who's in a bright yellow raincoat, but they did catch the Doctor and Harry and take them back to be interrogated. And in doing so, they asked the Doctor to clean out his pockets. This is something that I kind of like because of 2 things. First of all, in most science fiction, when they catch somebody and throw them in a cell, they don't even ask them if they have anything on them, much less check. And therefore, they have all kinds of gadgets that they can hide with them, weapons, communicators, things like this. In this case, they tell the Doctor to empty his pockets. And that's the second thing that delights me about the first episode of this, is where he starts taking things out of his pocket. He's got crystals, he's got little devices, he's got a sonic screwdriver, he's got a bag of jelly babies, he's got all kind of yo-yo and all kinds of things. And this is one thing that we've talked about before that this Doctor has, which is always something in his pockets, usually whatever he needs to pull out of his pocket, there it is. And it doesn't say if he's completely emptied them, but we'll assume that he has for the moment. So with all of this, it's put together into a box and carried out to the head of the scientific division, who is a fellow by the name of Ronson. Meanwhile, Sarah Jane has found herself among the Thralls, and after trying to make a noble escape, she finds herself with some of the mutants, which are also Khalids who had been involved in the war and due to chemical warfare had mutated. And so with them and Sarah Jane, they're loading what looks like nuclear fuel into this rocket that they're building as a weapon. What they called it was a distronic device in order to presumably break up anything electronic. Anyway, under the guise by Davros that he wants to create the Daleks, which at that point were called battle machines or something like that, as a way of finally bringing the society to peace, when his ultimate goal really is to eliminate all life on the planet and have his Daleks be the genetic results of what's left of the planet. There are some scientists, along with Ronson, they find, that are concerned about Davros's experiments and perhaps seeing through some of his motivations and believing that it's not really a proper use of science. It is something to kill rather than to prevent death. And so there is kind of a subterfuge going on here. Meanwhile, in order to try to find their way to the Thrall's side, the Doctor and Harry find a vent shaft. Once again, another one of these tropes that you see in so many kind of spy shows and science fiction. They always have air vents that are big enough to walk through. And in this case, the Doctor and Harry were both able to fit through these vents and get into the caves. The design of the rocket, I think, was really quite good. It was probably a model, but it did seem to scale properly, where it did look big. It didn't look like a model taken with a wide lens. The gantry for it was just regular scaffolding, and while that was a little shaky for something that would be as tall as they intended to be, it seemed to work out well. It added the kind of tension to the episode that they wanted it to, and so far the acting has been pretty good. We find that we have the scientists who are interested in helping the Doctor, the military types who are more interested in just winning a war, and Davros's own ambition, which is, we don't care about any of those people, we just want the Daleks to survive. And so that's where we leave the first half of this 6-episode adventure. We generally think that Davros's makeup effects, as they were with the Sontarans, was really quite well done. His way of seeming to be practically a shell of a full individual by his slow movements and things such as this. Obviously, his mind is brilliant, but his body is failing him, which is what led him, I guess, to come up with the idea of the Dalek machines, as he is in pretty much of one himself. And the other parts are done fairly well. The set design is pretty good. If you look too closely at some of the carts that they use, they're covered with air conditioning duct tape, the reflective type, but generally speaking, it's believable enough. The false floors don't look too fakey. The ways of getting around are really pretty good for the time. It seemed to be a well-produced production. And of course, Terry Nation, who created the Daleks to begin with, wrote these episodes, and it is a superior writing job and holds up even to this day. So I'd like to know what you think about it. Please subscribe if you have not done so so far, and always click the like button if you will. That helps us out in growing this channel. So we talk about Doctor Who in our retro reviews as this. We also talk about Star Trek in the original series and in Picard as it's going on, and also Star Wars with the Mandalorian and the Bad Batch still in production. So we're following all these things. We hear that there's going to be an announcement of when the beginning of Strange New Worlds will be for the next season, and we'll keep you on top of all of that as we try to stay on top of all of that. So until next time, don't go far.